So Microsoft is deciding to end their support. Well, they have already decided to end their support for Windows 10 in October of this year, which means that some older computers that are still pretty good, that may have, say, I don't know, an i5 6500 or 7500, still decent computers, aren't going to be supported by Windows 10. I mean, well, they'll be supported by Windows 10, but you won't get any updates. They won't be supported by Windows 11 because of other Microsoft security rules. Now, there's hacks out there that I'm sure you can find, but what if you don't need to use Windows at all? Maybe Linux gaming might be the answer? So as far as candidates go for a Bazzite SteamOS type install, Bazzite is actually a Linux distribution that plays well with SteamOS. But yeah, I believe this one's got a Core i5 6500 in it. We'll take a look and we'll see, and we'll play around with it and see if this might fit our needs. Of course, we'll have to put a video card in here, which means I might use the RX 6400, but that's only 4 gig of video memory. But still, we'll see what we can do out of this. So I mentioned that because there's been a pretty good rumble lately about SteamOS and a Linux distribution called Bazzite. I went with Bazzite because as I was trying to do this, the SteamOS finally came out in a released version. I'll be trying that next, especially because this quite didn't give me the results that I wanted. Now, it was relatively easy to go ahead and find the ISOs on the Bazzite site. It was pretty easy. Also, I used a tool, Rufus, to go ahead and put the ISO on a thumb drive that I was able to go ahead and make a bootable thumb drive and put Bazzite on that computer. Now, as an operating system, I kind of liked it, but there were some things they don't quite tell you. For one, there's a couple of different versions of this because NVIDIA isn't really supported that well. Now, Steam Decks and stuff like that SteamOS work on are typically AMD integrations. So it's more difficult, even though Linux does support NVIDIA, it's a little bit of a workaround, not as easily. And it kind of flags and it tells you that warning when you go to select that file as an ISO to download. The same thing when you're going... Now, I do have an NVIDIA GPU or an NVIDIA video card that we're going to try to use in this Optiplex. But, yeah, there's a couple of different caveats with that, too, because the version that they recommend you use doesn't really play that well with Steam. Steam is an option, and you can switch to the big display for the SteamOS type display. But there are some things that aren't available on that, including when I was trying to get the statistics and everything to show up on the screen. It was very difficult to try to get an idea of how these games were actually running. I did run a bunch of titles, my normal benchmarks. I ran them in Windows, and I was going to rerun these with Bazzite using the Steam interface. And yeah, we ran into a few problems. Now, I started with Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and that gave us results that are similar, better on one side of the scale than they were on the other. But it's just your preference. I thought, okay, we did a little bit of configuring, we did a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and we got it out of the way, on to the next title. Now, I will say that I do like the way that Bazzite, the interface itself and the Linux is set up. It's very clean, very nice, very quick, especially on that 6500 i5. And the other caveat is that RX 6400, the single slot GPU, even though it's enclosed in there, that Optiplex, that card actually runs cooler with the cover on. It's counterintuitive, but I guess there's airflow coming in through that front fan, goes through, and it actually ran about 5 degrees cooler overall than it did when I had the side panel off. I retested just to make sure, and yes, in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, we were doing about the same, although high was better on one, low was better on the other. Regardless, anyway, it was still playable. Moved over to Borderlands 3, immediately had an issue. Now, first of all, it tried to tell me I needed the shaders. It did tell me on the Shadow of the Tomb Raider also. Vulkan shaders had to be built for Shadow of the Tomb Raider and for Borderlands 3, but the problem is when they got built for Borderlands 3, it just wouldn't play. It went back to just, the regular screen. I thought, okay, maybe there's a little bit of an issue there. I have had issues before with Borderlands 3 with some other configurations. Say with MSI Afterburner, I did a video on that where I kind of talked a little bit about that. I might or might not put that up here. I don't know. Anyway, I did have some issues, so I said, okay, Borderlands, maybe that's a quirk. We'll go ahead and do Cyberpunk. Now, I wasn't expecting Cyberpunk to do very well, but I was expecting it to try to run. It did not. It did the same thing. It gave me the same result as I got when I tried to run Borderlands 3. Now, I can understand Cyberpunk not quite wanting to run, but it did run in Windows. It did not run in Bazzite. It did not run on the Steam interface. And Borderlands 3 was an older game that I figured would run and did not. In fact, I tried to run the Black Myth Wukong benchmark and it wouldn't run. The only other thing I did get to run, and I tried a couple of games, even No Man's Sky, which is one of my favorites, which runs on Vulkan. It runs on the Vulkan API in Windows. Built the shaders, took about 15 minutes to build the shaders, and still would not run. I did get CS2 to run. Very poorly, I might add. First of all, it had to build the shaders again. And I didn't use the benchmark tool or anything like that. There's a workshop benchmark tool that I have to download. But just gameplay, normally I can use MSI Afterburner to go ahead and do a benchmark type thing for this. I don't have that available to me, but I was trying to keep an eye on what the actual average frame rate was. And very seldom did it get above 60 frames per second. And most of the time it hung between about 45 and 50. It was noticeably laggy. There was noticeable issues. And right now this is running on DX11. So maybe there's some issues in that as well. DX11 on Windows. It was trying to run on Vulkan on Linux, obviously. Because, well, the DX11 and DX12 and all that stuff are Microsoft products and we're using Linux. Still, I would have figured that was an easier game to run, even though it's a fairly newer title. It's built on basically the same engine as the old Counter-Strike, and I would have thought that would be able to be run a little bit better than it was. You can kind of see the empty boxes, or the boxes and all that stuff open still. I've been working and I'm still testing because I'm trying to see if this can't work a little bit better. Okay, Future Paul butting in here for a moment. So the original install I did was Bazzite and tried to use SteamOS, or I tried to use Steam on Bazzite, and of course you can flip back and forth between the two interfaces. This time I went ahead and I installed Bazzite, the Steam Deck version. It defaults to coming up in the Steam, the large Steam display. It also gives you some things that the other distribution didn't give you. So I've got tests working and I will update you guys accordingly. That's going to have to be in a different video though, because now I've got, it looks like it's promising. Anyway, back to the original video. Do I feel this is a failed experiment? No. I actually am glad I tried it. I am going to try the Bazzite installation with the integrated SteamOS next, because that was one of the other two options that I had for AMD. The NVIDIA option, it gives me the warning. The AMD, when I choose one, I can choose like the SteamOS type version or the gameplay version or whatever it is, and it tells me that it might not work with my setup. And it didn't even know what my setup was, but it told me that it might not work with some AMD setups, and the other version, when I selected that I was going to use an AMD video card, it just said, okay, fine, here it is. That's the version I ended up using, was the regular AMD ISO. I am going to try the gaming ISO or the deck ISO. I believe it's actually called AMD Deck or something like that. And that's the Steam Deck version. So I'm going to try that next. If that gives me any different results or any measurable results, I'll leave those pinned in the comments, or maybe even in the description if this video has already gone live by then or hasn't, whatever the deal is. But am I disappointed? Yes. I don't think this is ready for prime time yet. I do like the interface. I like the way that it swaps back and forth between Steam, basically a Steam OS look or a Steam Deck look, and the regular Bazzite interface. I think that it runs very cleanly, very quick, very snappy, very responsive. Relatively easy to figure out. It's a lot more intuitive than Linux used to be, And if you know your way around Windows, you can figure out your way around this distribution. So I was really, really happy with that. Do I feel this is a full replacement for some kind of Windows installation on an older PC? Not yet. Not yet. And part of the reason why also is because even though Steam OS and all that is going to take this whole sector by storm, we still have people that are using other installers. Rockstar has their own installer. I think I don't think they've converted back to Steam yet. Epic Games has their own. So playing Fortnite on something like this is going to be difficult. So there are things that are going to be lacking that maybe this just isn't quite ready for yet. Hopefully I've been able to include some graphics or pictures or B-roll along here somewhere along the way to kind of let you guys know what I was doing or show. But yeah, I'm going to keep playing with this because I think it's worth it. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to step up to a 7700, the i7 7700, which is also not supported by Windows 11, and try it with an RTX 3050, because that RTX 3050 6 gig might be enough to push us over the top there and still have enough power to run games. Now that gives me a chance to check the NVIDIA ISO. What I also want to do is I have an RX 480 and an RX 6600 XT that I can try the regular Steam Deck IO or the AMD Deck IO or whatever it's called. We can try that ISO. Excuse me. We can try that ISO and install that version, and so we can go ahead and try that to see if it's any better. So I'm not done playing with these, and whatever combination I find, obviously I'll make a video. If it's a huge failure or it takes up a lot of my time where, hey, look, I haven't put a video out in a while, I need to let you guys know what's going on, I'll do that too. But in the meantime, the installation was relatively simple. I just told it when it asked what hardware I was going to be using, I put it in and I gave it that. It gave me an option of downloading the ISO. I did that. I used Rufus to put it on a bootable USB drive. Pretty simple. It booted right into it. It installed it without much of a problem. The one thing that I will tell you, if you're going to do this, that Bazzite does not tell you on their website, and I had to look up and I found, very important caveat here, when you go to do this, if you leave it in secure boot or something like that, it's automatically going to come up and ask you for a password. The password is not 1234. That password is not ABCD. That password is not a password or anything like that. It's Bazzite. The username is Bazzite. Password name is Bazzite. So, and all small letters. You don't have to capitalize or anything. So that's how I got in, but I had to go searching for that to find out. So a couple little things about this Optiplex. It is one of the smaller version. It is an SFF version running an i5 6500. Bazzite itself worked great. The Steam OS part of it did not work as well as I had hoped and did not run many of the games I tried. Ran much better with the side panel on. I guess the airflow through that, even though that single slot card is right next to the PSU, it ran much cooler, about 5 degrees cooler with the cover on it. And what I'll probably do is get a Noctua fan if I'm going to keep this configuration. So may do that. And if I get any better results or if I can find a way to optimize this and make it better, I'll certainly update the video. So that is all I have for right now. I've been in the middle of a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, we're just going to leave it at that. That is all I have for this. I have some other stuff working. Obviously, there you can see the empty boxes and all that stuff sitting over there behind me and the queue of PCs that are still on the floor. We have other things going, including my editing rig back there that I am now pretty much done trying to pull the data files off my friend's hard drive. And we'll just see how that's going to work out. I'll have my editing rig back, and that'll make me very, very happy. But in the meantime, that is all I have. If you got anything out of the video, please go ahead and throw a like on it. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit me up on those other socials. But if you don't do any of that stuff, I just have one favor, and that's be good to each other. Doesn't cost anything to be kind. Smile, wave, hold the door open, something, anything. Just those little things might make somebody's day, and it might make your day too. So until I get myself into something I got no business getting into, and there's a pile of stuff over there. That's all I got, so I'll see you later.